Okay, so what have I been working on in February? Last week was Transport and Environment Committee. I brought a motion forward to committee and I was supported by a deputation from some of the young kids who come from Blackford and cycle to James Gillespie's primary school as part of their bike bus. I was asking for the council to provide more help and support and work more closely with the volunteers that run bike buses for the different schools across Edinburgh. Bike buses are an important way in which people can ensure that their kids are able to travel to school by bike or on their scooters, and it helps them to do that because the parents ride around the outside and the kids ride in the middle, and the block of cyclists as a whole mean that they're able to travel really safely on otherwise quite dangerous routes. The other thing which I would like to highlight from the Transport Committee last week is the low emission zone work. So I've spoken about this before because it's a subject which I'm passionate about. We had a paper at the committee meeting which was expected originally to be proposals of what the low emission zone scheme would look like in Edinburgh. But unfortunately, because the Scottish Government has not yet been able to finalise its guidance, we are still not able to bring forward that scheme here in Edinburgh. So the paper obviously acknowledged that and identified that what we should be doing is imposing limits on buses and the emissions that buses are able to emit in Edinburgh in a similar way to that which Glasgow has brought in. I'm really pleased that we're doing that as an interim measure, but what I asked for was that we bring back also an air quality management plan, because the council's air quality management plan is actually 12 years out of date. It's unbelievable that we haven't had an updated plan for that long. So I think that given that we have got air quality management areas in Edinburgh where we are currently suffering from illegal levels of air pollution, both in terms of nitrogen oxides and also particulate matter, we really need to have that updated plan, particularly given that we're having low emission zones legislation brought forward. The other spectacularly exciting thing that happened last week in my portfolio area was that the Green Group of MSPs in Holyrood were successful in negotiating in the budget for Scotland. So they came to an agreement with the Scottish Government that they would have some green policies included in the budget in return for supporting the budget through Parliament. And I'm particularly excited because some of the headline asks are really important from the transport point of view. One that you've probably seen on the news since it was announced last week is that we are now going to be implementing free travel on buses for under 18s across Scotland. And obviously the implementation of that is still to be worked out exactly how that will work and how young people will access that travel for free. But it's so important because it's impossible at the minute for families on low incomes to take their whole family out for the day on the bus or to travel to appointments on the bus without spending a lot of money. It also gives young people a lot more freedom to travel and the ability to go and take part in activities, go to college, go to work, all sorts of different things. So I'm really excited about that policy development which the Green MSPs negotiated for. But closer to home, the thing that I'm super excited about is that the Sheriff Hall roundabout is back on the negotiating table. So as part of the budget negotiations, one of the things that the Greens managed to secure was to renegotiate what the development of the Sheriff Hall roundabout would actually look like. So I have been campaigning to scrap the building of a flyover there because it is basically road building for general traffic. The analysis that was published by Transport Scotland shows that it will increase the number of vehicles, it will increase congestion and it will increase air pollution. So it doesn't meet any of our climate targets, nor does it actually help people who it's aiming to help. What I want to do instead is negotiate a new scheme which would prioritise walking and cycling and public transport priority rights of way. So What I'm doing at the minute is looking at what that renegotiation might look like, how it will work, because there's a complexity given that the money comes from Transport Scotland but is governed and delivered by the City Region Deal, which is made up of 6 local authorities round the table. It's a very complex governance framework, and I am just trying to work out how best to engage with that. So I am currently speaking to the different people involved in that to work out exactly how we get involved and engaged on that work. But good news. I also want to highlight that in the Edinburgh branch, I hosted a branch event where we invited Majid, who is the recently ex-MEP for his region in England, and also the ex-Lord Mayor of Sheffield, who made a bit of a media splash when he was elected and took an unconventional approach to his duties. The video of that event is now up on YouTube, so I'll pop a link to that below. So if you weren't able to get along to the event, you can catch up. And I have to say, it was really interesting. He's a fascinating guy to listen to and had a really fresh outlook on how we do politics at a local and international level. So I would advise you to watch it if you have the chance. Also, I have been working hard to help people to engage with the Council's consultation on the City Mobility Plan, which is out at the moment. It's live right now and it's open until the end of March. And it's a consultation on how we move people around the city and how we move goods and how we deliver services that require transport. And it is looking at our transport strategy in the context of spatial planning and how we can change the way we use our space to deliver different ways of moving around, and also link up the different areas that need to be linked up. That sounds a bit waffly, and that's the reason why I've made a set of PowerPoint slides. And I mention this because they're public and it's available for everybody to use. So if you want to do a discussion group with friends or colleagues or somebody who you share an interest group with, then you can use these slides, go away and do your own discussion on it, and then go onto the Council's consultation hub and fill out the survey. Because if you come to the survey cold, it might be a little bit difficult to understand what your feedback might be. So again, I'll pop a link to that underneath the video so that you can access that. And finally, at the beginning of February, I was at a meeting of full council, and I asked a couple of questions in council. One was a leader's question, so I asked Adam McVeigh if he could explain the situation in East Princes Street Gardens and whether he could speak to the state that they are currently in, which is a mud bath, and it still is. He wasn't able to answer my question satisfactorily, and I think that speaks to a wider issue that the governance of this council has, which is that events in parks are taking a priority because the finance is not there to support our parks without them putting on events. And the council's leadership needs to take responsibility for that decision. And I'm continually putting them on the spot about that now, because I really think that things have gone too far and we must protect our parks and gardens in Edinburgh. And I also asked 2 written questions in full council. One was about how we use equalities to assess where we put down grit when the weather is cold to make sure that people don't fall on icy pavements. So you might have seen in Nordic countries, they prioritise pavements and cycle routes, and they also prioritise residential streets over main arterial routes. And the reason for that is that it has a greater equalities impact. And I was keen to understand whether that was something which this council is thinking about. It isn't currently, and so by introducing that in a written question, I'm now able to move forward with that line of questioning. And I also asked about the cycle lanes that are built and ready for use at Picardy Place, but which still have got closed signs across them. And I have got now a map which shows that they should be in use because the roads have not been redetermined for use as roads, but the cycle lanes are closed and the roads are open. So watch this space for more campaigning on Picardy Place. And that's a quick rundown of my work in February.